Hey, it's Stacy B. The whole month of May on Light, Love, and Laughter, we're going to be talking about the variety of tools available for your toolkit. Join us Wednesday, May 2nd, when our guest is going to be Daniel Hill, EFT practitioner and hypnotherapist. He's going to be talking to us about the EFT technique and how it can benefit your journey. Join us Wednesday, May 2nd at 4 p.m. from Light, Love, and Laughter, only on GSHradio.com. Hey, it's Stacy B. Welcome to Light, Love, and Laughter for Wednesday, May 2nd. And I am so excited to have Daniel Hill with us today. As you know, if you've been listening, the month of May is going to be dedicated to offering you some of the spiritual tools that are available to put in your toolkit. If you're on a spiritual journey, you know that sometimes the tool that you get used to using all of a sudden is going to stop working. And so I wanted to take this month and offer some different tools that are available so that when you find yourself in a place on your path where what you've been used to doing is no longer working, that you've got a place to go that's filled with lots of other things so you can find something that will work for you. So, as I said, our guest today is Daniel Hill. He is with us from Kidminster in England. How far outside of London is that, Daniel?
About 100 miles.
Oh, so it's further than I thought. Okay, so we can't say you're in London.
No, you can't say I'm in London because I'm not in London.
Okay.
I'm near Birmingham, which is in the centre of England.
Okay.
Kind of like the heart of England.
Okay, so from the heart of England, we can go with that.
Okay.
And Daniel is a hypnotherapist, an NLP practitioner, as well as an EFT master, as far as I'm concerned, because I've had my own personal Say again?
EFT advanced practitioner.
Advanced practitioner, okay. I use master because I've had some work with Daniel that we've done together, and so that was my spin on that. So let's just jump right into it, Daniel. What exactly is EFT?
EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques. It's an emotional form of acupuncture. So we work on emotions while we're speaking consciously, and it really is as powerful as hypnosis.
Okay, and I know that for some people who may have seen it, there was actually a TV show over here in the States, and if I'm not mistaken, it was also done on the BBC, and it was using the tapping technique for weight loss.
Okay.
And so I think that anybody who is not familiar with it may have been exposed when NBC here in the States a couple years ago over the summer ran a show where they used the tapping technique. So that's a big part of EFT, is it not?
It is EFT, basically. I mean, it originally came from thought field therapy, but you're using pretty much the same points and saying the same things. So it's just a really accessible tool that you can use to work on limiting beliefs that are preventing you from fulfilling your potential.
Okay, and beliefs coming from experiences that you've had which created perceptions, which then solidified into beliefs. Is that accurate, do you think?
That's pretty accurate. It's the things that are pretty impactful in your life, as much as sort of the drip effect of the environments that you have been in. So that's from family to school to whether you're in the church or, it's all beliefs basically. So the environment that you grow up in give you the beliefs for the rest of your life, unless you want to work on them. And that's when this work comes into fruition, and you can start tapping on yourself and start to take some of the charge out of the emotion when you're thinking about wanting to overcome fear, for example.
Okay, you said that EFT was born from a technique called thought field therapy.
TFT.
And I'm not familiar with Roger Callahan's work. I know Gary Craig is how I came to know about EFT.
Yes.
So
Gary Craig was a student of Dr. Roger Callahan. He went and studied thought field therapy. And it was quite expensive back then, and he made it more available to the masses, basically, and simplified it. It was the first time I ever heard of it was in its form called EFT, but it is also known as TFT. But people will just call it tapping, and a lot of the clients I will just say. They might ring me up and actually want hypnosis, because hypnosis is a tool that people do a tribute to making change in your life. And people will come and say, well, I'm hoping that you can just hypnotize me, and I'm hoping hypnosis will work. And sometimes it's difficult to hypnotize people or to get them into a relaxed state. And although it is very effective and I still like using it, I like using EFT also. And it's combined with something called NLP, which I studied as well. It is as powerful as hypnosis.
And have you explained to our listeners what NLP is? It stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming.
Yeah, Neuro-Linguistic Programming. It was the combination of many studies that were done in the 1970s by two people called John Grinder and Richard Bandler. And they studied lots of people who were at the top of their game using various techniques in order to create change within people. So one of those people was a psychiatrist called Dr. Milton Erickson, who was a very famous clinical hypnotherapist back in those days. And actually, if EFT was around in the 1970s, it would have been within NLP. It's NLP is really it's not as known to common people necessarily. A lot of people know about NLP in business, and it's very good for companies will use that in marketing and in sales, and it's you can use it to persuade others. Where I'm using it for a therapeutic context, where I'm helping to persuade them to think differently from their limiting beliefs.
Okay, and if I understand correctly, NLP really focuses on language, the language that we use with others as well as ourselves.
It does, but actually there are other things that are from the world of NLP. So there are other techniques that you can use. There's something called the swish pattern, and there's lots of other techniques, which I learned, and I did use in my early career, but I don't use them as much. One of the main modalities I use is EFT, and it just works. I still use hypnosis because I like doing hypnosis, but I have a lot of clients, and I will sometimes just think I'm going to use EFT with them regardless. I will still use a bit of the NLP language, and I'm very careful with my language, and you can use a lot of metaphor using EFT. The unconscious is incredibly receptive to symbols, although not everybody is visual, and their primary modality may be kinesthetic, that's feeling, so they might feel the world, but you can use symbology with the work that you're doing, and sometimes you can do EFT with your eyes closed and you're tapping, and after a while they're pretty much as relaxed as they were going to be in hypnosis, without going,
right,
oh, now feeling sleepy and now getting tired. And it's it's just a really nice tool, and I use it with people from well, I mean, I've seen clients in teenagers, and I used it on a 90-year-old man whose daughter phoned me up because he'd had a fall and he'd lost some of his confidence. And he was receptive to it, and it did actually take some of the charge out of the trauma that he had through having the fall and losing his confidence.
Well, I'm curious, what led you to want to study EFT?
My health, my life was going down the pan, and I was in a really quite poor state of health. I had something called ME, which is more known as chronic fatigue syndrome in the States, I think. Is that correct?
Yes, chronic fatigue syndrome. They used to call it Epstein-Barr virus at one point in time, but now it's
I got the Epstein-Barr virus when I was 16, and at 32 years old, I was still really suffering, and I was struggling in life in many ways. At the age of 30, my health had declined, even though I'd had 4 years of counselling. It had declined to a state where I was sort of partly paralysed down the left-hand side of my body with autoimmune disease. I had got something called reactive arthritis. I had caught a virus, and my body totally overreacted. And I was in I was basically bed-bound and wheelchair-bound for a month, and lost loads of weight. And I had something called iritis, so the whites of my eyes just completely turned red. and I just didn't know what was wrong with me, Stacey. And nobody was giving me any answers, and really they just wanted to give me drugs. And I've always been pretty sensitive, and I couldn't deal with that. My body couldn't really deal with the drugs. So I was just looking for answers and to what was going on within me. And EFT was one of the tools that I came across. And I did immerse myself in it, along with the NLP and hypnosis, and meditation and listening to binaural beats. But I understood that this one tool was really great, and I could use it on myself. And I probably got addicted to tapping on myself, so I was doing lots of EFT on myself. I still do a lot now, but I was tapping literally on everything and anything.
Right.
And I almost became obsessive about it for a while, and that wore off. But I shifted through enough beliefs. I was pretty just desperate. But the topic of your show is about shifting your vibration and getting much more into the spiritual aspect of life, or your who you truly are. I know we're spirit. Well, I certainly believe we're spiritual beings having a human experience, and I wanted to break out of this incessant fear and the sadnesses and the past hurts and some of the guilts and the shames. And this was a tool that was working through that. It wasn't always miraculous and instantaneous. There were levels to it, but the counselling had given me a conscious understanding of my past, but I hadn't really linked up that all of my past events had caused me to have beliefs, and those past events and my history thus had caused me to beliefs, and thus my health was quite out of whack. And I needed to make shifts in my life, and they began to change the more I shifted my perception on things. We all try and do this consciously, or we read books. I've got a great big bookshelf over here with lots of books telling you how to do it, but it's very much kind of like positive thinking, and I need to think more positively, and how can you do that when you're paranoid and you can't leave your flat and you can't get out? So I just used this tool amongst other things, but it slowly began to create shifts within me unconsciously, and then I started to really get kind of addicted to it. Now I've lessened off a little bit, where I've got sort of a lot more peace and balance in my life, and generally you don't use it as much, but it's still something that I'll probably be tapping on myself for the rest of my life. It's a wonderful tool.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, I'd like to continue the conversation. I think especially it's important to inform people and let them know that it's not an instant gratification, drive-through McDonald's kind of thing. So we'll talk about that a little bit when we get back. We're going to take a break right now, and we'll see you in a couple minutes.